Hello, everyone. I see we have about 24 participants who've joined us. Welcome. We're just going to give about another minute or two for our other guests to join us. Then we will officially start the program. Thank you very much. I noticed a question. Bipilo, you asking why do we make putting in emails compulsory upon entering the meeting? So Bupelo, we do this for registration purposes, just to get a sense of who's attending our meetings. Yeah, it's by no means meant to invade on your privacy or anything. We quite aware of the POPI Act and very much in line with its precepts. So please don't be alarmed. We won't be sending you messages. We won't be sending you messages. We just want to get a sense of who is in the room today. It would be great if we could all just write our names in the chat. Just write your name and your organization, and also include your email address if you're happy to, as a way of registration and knowing who is in the room. Thank you, colleagues. So I'm ready to start the program, and I hope that you are too. Welcome, everyone, and welcome especially to our esteemed panelists. Thank you all for making the time to join us today as we discuss a very pertinent topic for the rail reform, which is really, which is really understanding, what are the lessons for the sector in getting early childhood development into the IDPs or integrated development programs of municipalities. My name is Thandeka Rantsi, and I am from Bridge. I am going to be facilitating the meeting today. I'm facilitating as a steercom member of the Rail Reform campaign. So just as a way of starting, colleagues, I'd like to go through some housekeeping rules so that we have a seamless conversation as much as possible. So our panelists are going to be in conversation with us on something that I'd like to believe we're all quite interested in. And so we want to afford you the opportunity to raise your questions, and we will indicate when that time comes. We will allow you to raise your hands and also to include chats include questions within the chats as well. And we do ask that, please, colleagues, that you mute yourselves. Please don't unmute if you are not speaking. And yeah, so let's just keep it cordial and friendly for all of us to just have a really great conversation. I'd like to just introduce who the Rail Reform is before I get into introducing our panelists for the day, so that you have a good sense of who is hosting you today. So the Rail Reform for Early Childhood Development is a movement that is advocating for holistic, well-funded inclusive and quality early childhood development services for all children. Real Reform for ECD was founded because the laws and rules prevent most early childhood development ECD programs from getting registered, which in turn means they cannot access government funding support. This affects programs in poor communities the most. And so therefore, our aim is really to ensure that there is an enabling legal, policy, and regulatory framework for holistic, quality, and inclusive early childhood development services. And so the Real Reform is a broad-based alliance made up of dedicated elected representatives who form the steering committee to lead the Real Reform's work, and we are supported by over 200 organizations. Okay, so it seems as if my camera is not, I hope everybody can see me now. Okay. All right, thank you, Liesel. Sorry, Zoe. So as the Real Reform, we are aware that municipalities tend to be a missing link when it comes to ECD provisioning, and yet they play such a critical role and are mandated by the Constitution and policy to support the sector in a number of ways. Real Reform took the opportunity to highlight these issues during the local government elections last year in October, in realization that there was hardly any mention of ECD in the manifestos of most, if not all, of the political parties. To address this issue, we set a goal as the Real Reform for ECD campaign to mobilize ECD forums, parents, communities, to call on to local councillors to ensure that they prioritize early childhood development programs in their term in office. And so our Make Local Government Work for ECD campaign calls local government into three main actions. The first one is to pull down the barriers to registration for ECD programs. The second action is to build more and upgrade existing ECD programs. And the third one is to make ECD a local spending priority. And that really means, including ECDs into the IDPs budgets and to set clear targets and allocate funding for new builds. So with all three of these actions, we have presented recommendations to guide our audience on the range of requests that they can make that are within the policy mandate for municipalities. The first phase of the campaign focused on engaging candidate councillors about ECD. And as I mentioned, that happened last year already around the local government elections. And so our focus there was on engaging candidate councillors about ECD and its importance and securing commitment for its support once the candidates were selected. The second part of the campaign, which is currently taking place, has largely focused on ensuring that ECD is included in the integrated development plans of the municipality. An integrated development plan is a plan for an area that gives an overall framework for development. It aims to coordinate the work of local and other spheres of government in a coherent plan to improve the quality of life for the people living in the area. It should take into account the existing conditions and problems and resources available for development for the area as a whole. It must set a framework for how land should be used, what infrastructure and services are needed, and how the environment should be protected. Members of the Real Reform for ECD who have been leading the work on the ground have made significant progress, as we have managed to not only educate councillors on the ground on the importance of ECD, but have also increased representation of ECD stakeholders in the IDP planning structures and processes in a number of municipalities. And so one of the ways to strengthen our work is to identify working practice that has led municipalities into supporting ECDs through the IDP processes. And that is really our objective for today, colleagues. So our panel of experts has been invited to share what working in practice has looked like, and we are honored to host them today. Our panel includes three representatives of organizations that have worked to improve ECD provisioning for young children for many, many years. And so I'd like to now take this opportunity to introduce our panelists. We have Liesel du Plessis. Liesel du Plessis is from PPT, or the Project Preparation Trust. Liesel is a senior project manager at Project Preparation Trust, and she's responsible for the management of special needs housing and early childhood development programs. Liesel works with all 3 tiers of government, focusing on the enhancement of ECD in local government, specifically with regards to the ECD infrastructure support, land use, and related matters. We also have Meraldia Tape from Grassroots. Meraldia is the Executive Director of Grassroots with over 40 years experience within the NPO ECD environment. Meraldia has successfully contributed to the growth and empowerment of empowerment of women and women who are, working in ECD centers. Her focus has been empowering women who otherwise would not have been able to qualify as educators and fully fledged teachers. We also have Mziwamadoda Badi from Ubunye Foundation. Mzi is also a SteerCom member of the Real Reform for ECD campaign. Mzi is the program leader for Ubunye Foundation, and he's currently a PhD candidate at the University of Fort Hare. He has a keen interest on the Children's Act and other related children legal frameworks. He holds various roles in the ECD space across the country. Namely, he's a steering committee member of Real Reform, as I've mentioned. He's also the deputy chair of NECTA. As well, he's also a chairperson of Sarah Batman ECD Forum, and he also is in the advisory, or plays a role, or an advisory role to the Eastern Cape PDSD ECD Directorate, amongst others. Okay, so thank you to the 3 of you for joining us. I know I've summarized your bios, because we probably might have to spend a good half of this session just telling people about the great things that you have done. So to open up for us, I would like to invite all 3 of you to please open us for us by just giving us a brief 3-minute overview of how your organization is currently working within municipalities. I think we could start with you, Liesel. Following after, we could have Meraldia and then Mzi.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name, as you've heard, is Liesel du Plessis. I'm working with Project Preparation Trust, or PPT for short. And we work in disadvantaged communities, mainly in eThekwini and in KZN, and depending on the program in other parts of the country. We focus on informal settlement upgrading, informal economy and micro enterprise support, and enhancing of ECD in local government, specifically focusing on surveys and infrastructure and land use and related matters, as well as special needs housing. And all of these activities we are really doing in very close collaboration with municipalities. So, and as well as departments and in other NGOs, we like to conceptualize and pilot innovative projects with the municipalities. For us, very important that the programs are embedded within the municipality, so that there's ownership of these programs. As you know, NGOs, we only get funding for a short while, and then so we can't be there every day. So it's very important. And then we also attend to strategies, policies, plans, implementation guidelines, and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Liesel. Meraldia, can you give us your brief overview?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Thandeka. I'm representing Grassroots Educator, a 49-year-old training and development organization. We accredited with the ECD as an award holder. We have programs which are registered with the Department of Social Development. We work throughout the Western Cape province, informal settlements, cities, towns, farms. We have training programs. We have 10 training programs, which some of we have written together with 250 principals, which are registered with the Department of Social Development. The area that we currently work in regarding registration project and with the municipalities as partners there is on the West Coast, Metro North, Metro East, and the Cape Winelands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Meraldia. Z, can you please give us your overview? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Am I audible, Thandeka? Thank you. Well, as Thandeka has said, my name is Mziwamadoda Badi. I work for Ubunye Foundation. Basically, Ubunye Foundation is a community-based organization that primarily deals with community development. But in this context of electoral development, we've got a specific project which is called ECD, which is primarily focusing on children and also training of ECD practitioners. Basically, we support ECD centers or ECD programs across the Amathole district and also Salabatman. And we play a lot of advocacy role across on a provincial level and the national level. So basically, we are a children of electoral development. Thanks.
Thanks, Mzi. Mzi, because I have access to your work through Real Reform as well, could you also just give a brief description of just the work that you've done in terms of the IDPs, just to give people an understanding of that part as well?
Yeah, no, thanks, Thandeka. Well, basically, having established a campaign since 2020, if I'm correct, November, where we were busy with the Children's Amendments Bill. We later then took a decision as a Real Reform for Electoral Development to establish a very strong campaign which is going to be focusing on electoral development, particularly on a local government. So in essence, what we then did was that to derive a concept document, which is going to be focusing primarily on how do we integrate electoral development into the integrated development plans of the municipalities, be it metro municipalities, be it local government municipalities, in all various of local government municipalities. Well, basically, therefore, we then had to take a decision on how we would then approach that concept. We then decided to say we have forums across all municipalities, which are supposed to form part of the IDP representative forums. And we started then to take a decision to say that let's develop that IDP toolkit as Real Reform, which we are going to make sure that we workshop all our ECD forums and ECD practitioners on the ground. We then adopted it as a Real Reform. We use that toolkit to make sure that we highlight all those issues which we think as Real Reform are fundamental in making sure that we realize all 5 reforms of electoral development in the concept of local government. That process was quite, it had mixed emotions. There were municipalities where we would go as forums and we would be accepted and they would be very happy in terms of having to integrate the process. But I would want to say that in a scale of 1 to 10, we have received a very positive relative response in all municipalities that we have integrated with. As I'm speaking to you now, we are sitting in a strategic session of the local municipality, myself and Tsepo, where we are giving presentations on how do we integrate a ECD in this local government municipality. And also we had a meeting with the Department of Education, where municipality was available as well on Tuesday, where we gave a very serious presentation to them as well as to that the municipalities must play a critical role in making sure that they make or they integrate the IDPs into they integrate ECD into their IDPs. We got a very, very good policy response, and we are continuously meeting with the municipalities because they are trying now to finalize the process of IDPs such that in the next month or so, they are adopted by councils. But I do want to say that it was not an easy road. It's still a process. This is the process which I think the manner in which we approach these municipalities must be in very amicable, but of course, very productive in approach. We must be assertive in terms of what the law prescribes in terms of responsibilities and roles that are supposed to be played by the municipalities. So at this point in time, I would want to say that we are still in the process. We are being helped by these local government forums in terms of ECD. And also we had very good engagements with councillors, be it in the ruling party or be it in the opposition bench. They've been advocating for such. Of course, there are resistance in terms of other people who do not understand the concept of early childhood development. But it is our duty, of course, to enlighten them, just to give them the understanding of the benefits of prioritizing the sector on that local government. And we are in the process of strengthening that process. TEPO will be in Johannesburg and in Gauteng primarily next week. We'll be rolling out these workshops, trying to engage the different forums as indicated. But we want to we said that next week on I think would be the 28th, if I'm not mistaken, we'll be having a further meeting with the Ndlambe municipality where we'll be engaging the municipality as a Sarabatman ECD forum in the concept of how do they then integrate early childhood development into their EDPs. Unfortunately, we got an invitation to that event as well. And I think our approach in terms of trying to get their attention is working. And I would want to appeal to, all these forums, be it in ECD forums or community of practice of early childhood development. They must start talking to the authorities with the view of trying to inculcate a culture of engagement, a culture of reaching out to all partners, because all of us were servicing the same communities. So I wanted just to just put a point across to that. Thanks, Thandeka.
Thank you so much, Mzi. And thank you to all of our panelists for just giving us, that sense of, how you are working with municipalities and what you are doing with municipalities. Before we carry on, Mzi, I see there's a question from Zoe. She's asking, where exactly in Gauteng would you be working?
So thanks. I think TEPO will be at Orange Farm next week.
Okay.
We'll be hosting a workshop in Orange Farm next week.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so colleagues, I'm hearing that we have different ways of working with municipalities. Liesel, you have spoken about, it sounds like a very long-term process that you've been involved in terms of working with local government, where you have been providing what sounds like a lot of back-end support, so that they're able to have things like surveys, so that they're able to pilot projects that can possibly work for the communities or for early childhood development programs that they're working with. I'd like to take this opportunity, Liesel, just based on what you've shared with us, can you please just explain to us, why do you consider working with local government to be important for the ECD sector?
Okay, so we all live in one of the 8 metros, the 44 district municipalities, or the 226 local municipalities. And the municipalities are at the coalface of development. Everything that we do takes place within a municipality. So all the physical development takes place there. Most of the and it takes place within a specific legislative environment. that specifies norms and standards and procedures and costs and tariffs and all of those things. So if one took take a look at the role of the municipalities in terms of the constitution and municipal legislation and the ECD policy, there's about 4 functions that emerge. And those would be multi-stakeholder coordination, working with government organizations and others, private sector and NGOs, planning and budgeting, very important, as we are talking today about the IDP, and infrastructure, and then the regulation and compliance issues. So those are the 4 main issues, and this is where most of the problems experienced by the ECD operators lie. And that is the domain where we need to resolve our issues. And I think, you know, it is sometimes difficult. People are just saying the municipality must do this, the municipality must do that. I think, you know, and there are laws and so on, but municipalities are really autonomous. And there are issues that we cannot take up with the national departments. We have to take them up with the local municipalities. And so while the national and provincial departments can supervise the functioning of the local government, it must be done in a way that they don't encroach on the institutional integrity of the local government. So yeah, so I think yeah, that would for me be over and above all the other reasons as to why one would need to work with local government. I think that is probably the most important, is that we should enhance ECD in the local government sphere from where we are. But we obviously should also take our cues from people who has already walked this road. Somebody like Mzi that I can hear now that has got also a lot of experience and so on these issues.
Okay, thank you for that, Liesel. I mean, I like what you said at the end, you know, around, you know, there's just issues that we have to take up with local government, and engagement at a national level with these particular issues is not going to help us. And I think that's, I mean, that fits squarely with, you know, the purpose of real reform at the end of the day, you know, because the whole decision around mobilizing people is that we are actually taking people to, you know, the ward councillors. We are actually trying to guide, you know, forums on the ground to actually interact with the officials at a local level, so we can start to make those gains in terms of, you know, seeing changes around, you know, infrastructure as well as planning, that the municipalities are supposed to include early childhood development in. So
can I just add something, Thandeka? I just want to say, yes, it is true that everything, most of it can be done on local level, but it is also very important, the role of national and provincial departments, because the initial awareness and roles and responsibilities and mandates need to be clarified on that level before we will get the municipalities totally at ease to engage, and when they understand exactly what their mandates and their roles and responsibility is in relation to the other departments.
Okay, no, thank you for that, Liesel. And I'd be quite keen to hear your advices when we get to the end around, you know, how do we actually do that? How do we get those national departments, you know, to support the IDP processes of, you know, institutions like Cocktail, like Salga, who have express functions, you know, when it comes to the IDP processes, you know, and supporting municipalities to actually implement them. How do we actually communicate and engage with them. So thank you so much, Liesel, for bringing that out. I would just like to now pose a question to Meraldia. Meraldia, I mean, you've worked and you're currently working in a number of municipalities in the Western Cape. I was looking through your reports. I think there was more than 10. And this work, you are doing work to support registration, and this is in partnership with the Department of Social Development. Can you please tell us, what has been your process when you embarked on this work? How did you get into a partnership with the municipalities? And who were the key role players that you interacted with or communicated with within the municipalities? Meraldia, can you please unmute?
Okay, thank you. There we are. So we're talking about process when we embark on this type of work. Now, for all these years, Grassroots did not only work on the registration project. And when we look at the objectives, when you set out working with local government, we look at ensuring compliance regarding the safety of children, teachers, and parents. That is foremost. Making sure that the ECD centers on the way to get registered so that they can access a child subsidy. When we go in there with that in mind. When I want to explain the process, the first step we would do is to establish who is responsible for ECD in the municipality. Because they've got different tiers, they've got different officials responsible for different things. We then explain the purpose of what the organization or we will be doing, then familiarize ourselves with who takes responsibility for the area of work. We attend joint meetings with the relevant departmental staff. For instance, the fire, environmental, health practitioners, land surveyors, town planning, specifically assigned staff within the department. We acquaint and partner with the ward councillors and so on. We introduce the team of our staff who will be working on different things with the municipality. And when we also look at the way forward in terms of the key components with the local government, then we look at things to understand each individual's role. So like I said earlier, they've got tiers of people working within the municipality. We ensure that we know who we talk to. We respect through communication. We are transparent. We look at punctuality. We adhere to time frames. We make sure that whatever we come and do within that local municipality area, that everybody knows what we will be doing. And so we also share the responsibility. If it's not the service provider organization's responsibility to do X, Y, and Z, we find that person within the municipality to take charge of all these things. So when we move forward, we move as a partnership. We move together with the Department of Social Development. We move together with the Department of Health. We move together with the Department of Education, and we move together with the municipality. Once we have established that type of partnership, and it's almost watertight, and your goal is looking at you, we discuss the relevant objectives of how to reach your goal. And many a time in the various municipalities where we work, on the West Coast, the Matsikama municipality, strong relationships with the municipality there. When we come up and we look at the Clan William municipality, Cedarburg, strong relationships there. We come up, we look at the Saldanha Bay municipality, SBM, very strong relationships, and how they're dealing with grassroots in terms of how partnerships also. And I just want to mention the almost 2 years of COVID. We have databases of ECD centers, which we could discuss and possibly make possible through our networks, grassroots network, so that they could deliver food parcels, they could, with grassroots, identify the poorest of the poor, and we could deliver on PPE. The municipalities made their vehicles available. They're making their buildings available for grassroots to work in coming near to Cape Town, on where we're working in the Metro North and East. We also have very good, strong relationships, and also in the Cape Winelands. And I might just pause and say this, not everything is hanky-dory. There is a lot of challenges. Our motto is this: talk through the challenges, so that we know when we have spoken through the challenges that someone is going to take responsibility to turn that challenge into a positive outcome. So to round it off, I just want to say that to meet the officials in person is what it's all about. I, for number one, do not believe in telephone conversations. I get in my car and drive 500 kilometers to go and meet that person, because you can speak better when you see face to face. And I see Mzi smiling. Mzi, you know what I'm talking about. So what challenges that we have experienced within the municipalities is the turnaround time to deliver. That turnaround time sometimes takes too long. By the time you get there, you've already missed the bus. And so the process has to start all over again. So for us to continue with engaging with the municipality is to continue building strong relationships. And I will later speak about further on, if I may. Thank you, Thandeka.
Thank you so much, Liesel. Meraldia, I saw Liesel and Mzi nodding as you were making some very strong points there around challenges. And we are going to take some time to just talk through some of these challenges more specifically. But also noting the issue around turnaround times. But I would just also like to highlight something that you've spoken about, Meraldia, around strong relationships with the local government, as well as knowing exactly who to talk to when you talk to people in local government, as well as the idea around, this face-to-face communication. You seem to really think that it's that critical to actually maintain, that face-to-face communication at times. And so, in my mind, it raises some questions around, how do we, and Liesel, also you spoke about the multi-stakeholder coordination sort of groups or reference groups in eThekwini that are usually led by municipalities. So I wanted to pose a question now around, how do we actually make sure that we have local municipalities participating and leading, in these relationships? How do we make sure that they can actually play a lead role? Because it sounds to me, Meraldia and Liesel, through your presentations, that it takes a while to build that relationship, and in building that relationship, you want your municipalities to be able to take some level of ownership, of the work that you do. So my question is really around that. How do we really make sure that government can take ownership and or local municipalities can take ownership, of the work that they do? whether it's with the multi-stakeholder coordinating structures, and or whether it's with, you know, ensuring that the registration happens. In your case, Meraldia, how do we do that?
Okay, thank you, Thandeka. How do we make sure that they actually come to the party? That is what you're saying. I said at first, get them involved by putting on the table exactly what we need to do as far as registration. We also involve the municipality officials into the ECD forums in the different areas where we work. Now, one of Grassroots' jobs also is to establish ECD forums. And within that forums, the ECD centers have direct access to municipality officials. And how we can make sure that they do what they have to do is continued conversation. Almost you become sort of a nagger. Throw out reminders. Do WhatsApp groups. Some of them are on WhatsApp groups with Grassroots. So we would throw out to them that in this area, in that area, there is a problem, a challenge with fire certificates. There's a challenge with health certificates. And we do know that some of them are really understaffed. And when we put out in terms of numbers of children that will suffer if they do not come to the party, I think that is key for them to know that this amount of children will eventually suffer if this ECD center isn't registered either on the Vangasali project or a real 5-year term of registration. They will not be able to access a subsidy. So by not accessing a subsidy, it will be linked to the Department of Social Development, who cannot do their work in terms of distributing that subsidy which they are responsible for. So can you see, there's a whole network of things that happens if the municipality do not do one of the things that they need to do. But I spoke also about turnaround time. That turnaround time is so important because by the time we have turned around the time, a child had probably left the ECD center already into primary school, where that child possibly isn't getting the nutrition or the development that the child had to get when the child was in preschool. Thank you, Thandeka.
Thank you so much, Meraldia. I just want to acknowledge, I've seen Bipila's asked a question that's quite specific, and Bipila, I would like Mzi to respond to that question because I think he would be quite knowledgeable on that front. As you can see, he's been very busy on the ground, and even now he is at an IDP meeting. But Liesel, just very briefly, you know, how has it been, you know, just having to have, you know, municipalities take up, you know, that leadership role? You know, what have you found has worked, you know, in getting them to that place where they now are the ones who are calling these meetings and are taking charge of the process?
So, we have in a place like eThekwini, so there are different approaches. One of the approaches that we've used in smaller municipalities, we went to the municipal manager, we introduced ourselves, we introduced the program, the fact that it's a priority program and so on. And we spoke about this multi-stakeholder a committee that we need to put together with the relevant departments within the municipality, because they need to have a mandate. The officials need to have a mandate to attend those meetings, otherwise they don't. And then the same also with the departments. So the departments are also then supposed to be there and then support NGOs. So in most of the small municipalities, that's the process that we have followed. But in all of them, we've also started off with a survey, with feedback on the surveys and so on to the municipalities. So we've written reports to the municipalities. We've done presentations at the standing committees. So I think I suppose where we were, where we are working from or we're coming from is a little bit different maybe to maybe people living in a specific town now having to deal with a municipality. But we also found that, if things are not embedded by the time that your program funding is running out, then things can very easily fall flat. In the case of eThekwini, we have submitted a report in 2017 to them, and we've asked specific resolutions to be taken. And we've done that. We've written the report or assisted the senior officials that we are working with to write that report and make sure that they feel comfortable with what we are asking. And that is on behalf of this steering committee. And we then received these resolutions that enabled us to carry on with the work, with the blessing of the municipality. That does not mean that there's no problems. That just means that we have the go-ahead. They've identified the people, the departments within the municipality and what role they should play. And so since the ECD does, since it's really an unfunded mandate, right? And municipalities do not have the funding to set up a ECD unit to deal specifically just with ECD matters. So what we have to do is to try and get the people nominated to deal with certain things, and they mandated to do that. And we still want to make sure that the key performance indicators also indicate that they have to deal with ECD. And and that is, I think, how we get ownership. But I would like to just comment on the district integrated ECD forums. I think those are absolutely great platforms, and in eThekwini, all our departments are represented there, NGOs, the ECD forums, and also various representatives of various departments at the municipality. The issue there is that we are more than 100, or we can be up to 100 people in one room. It does not really, it does not create the environment to really sit down, with the municipality to deal with the issues in a constructive, how should I say, manner. It's all good for them to hear that these things are raised at the platform. My suggestion would be that where you do not have that you should ask this platform, this district platform, you must ask the lead department to try and set up a municipal ECD steering committee, where departments and the people who, say, for instance, the representative from NGOs or the representatives from a forum, but a smaller, more contained group can interact with the metro. So they can hear what all the issues are, they can take it to the municipality, and the municipality does not have to face 500 things, that's coming to them that may be confusing to them. So I would really suggest that that you have a more workable group where the municipality can also talk to their counterparts. Very often they have questions on mandates, on roles, responsibilities. They can't ask the ECD forum about that. And those are the things that they sort out. We have seen how many problems have been sorted out between the EHPs that have been working with DSD for donkey's years, have actually been resolved now that they can sit quietly and they can talk to each other in a very constructive way. So that would be my suggestion on you know, how to get ownership. And yeah, but it's important also that we have that that we get it embedded within that municipal system. And I can tell you now, if you ask if the lead department comes to the municipality, they won't say no. They will be open to it. It will work.
Okay. Oh, thank you for that, Liesel. So Mzi has had to just leave us for a while, and I actually wanted to direct the following question to him, which Bipilo has sort of touched on. And I think what Bipilo's asking, I mean, in our context as the real reform, she's asking, you know, she's part of an ECD forum in Garangua, and she's asking that, you know, can these engagements with local councils be done as a collective, you know, say organizations or stakeholders in the ECD sector from Garangua band together. We have found it hard to engage our councillor alone. You know, we don't belong to a forum because we are not a center. They only have an NPO, well, they're running as an NPO, you know, with an ECD program. So they're not, I guess they're not registered, but oh, okay, Mzi, you're also, so you're back as well. So,
yeah,
I mean, Liesel, you are talking in this case about, I think you said there are district development forums, right? Which are supposed to be set up by the municipalities. Am I hearing you correctly? You muted.
So, there are district ECD forums set up by the DSD.
Oh, by
and
DSD.
They are
Okay.
in most of the municipalities that you will find them. What I'm saying is that it works for us, it works better where there's a smaller group, not 100 people. It's still good for the municipality to hear first hand from that. But that for us, was not the platform where we wanted to engage closer with the municipality. So we are talking about a municipal ECD multi-stakeholder steering committee. So it will be the same people that's on that district municipal on that district ECD forum will also then be, some of them will be represented then on that steering committee with the municipality where they are leading it. At the moment in eThekwini, we have the municipality as the chair, and the co-chair is the Department of Education. And if you have those people taking ownership, then things will go forward and it will develop naturally.
All right. Okay, no, thank you, Liesel. So, I mean, what you're saying, I think it has implications for the work that the Real Reform Campaign is currently busy with. And Mzi, I just wanted to bring you in here. You know, Liesel is speaking about the involvement, and I envision that in the long term, you know, because IDPs are for 5-year plans, you know, there'll probably be a whole lot more engagement with the current ECD forums that you are working with in your district. There'll be a whole lot more engagement with municipalities and the municipal structures themselves. So Liesel is making the point that at times, you know, we tend to band together and there's large numbers of, whether it's, different stakeholders who are engaging, municipalities at the same time. And at times, it doesn't necessarily work for the purposes of making decisions, or, coordinating properly. So, ironically, Bibila's also asked that question, and I would like for you to just answer Bibila's question first, because she's really trying to understand, how best can they engage local councillors. It sounds like she's in Garangua, and she is saying, they don't want to, let me just read it out for you so you can hear it clearly.
No, I got it.
Oh, did you get it?
Yeah.
Okay, can we just respond to Bibila first, and then we'll continue with the topic around engaging municipalities.
Yeah, sure. No, look, I think what I think is misunderstood by a lot of structures. One is the fact that when you are an NPO, there's supposed to be an NPO forum, which is supposed to be a representative of all NPOs in the district. And therefore, that district is then going to be responsible to hear everything else that has to do with matters that relates to NPO, be it children, be it ECD, be it disability, be it HIV and AIDS, be it all other sector issues that are within the NPO sector. You don't necessarily to have to join an ECD forum. However, it is advisable if you, for instance, I read her post and she did indicate that they are an NPO, but they do have an ECD program. Automatically it gives them a right to be part and parcel of an NPO that is of a nature of an ECD forum. I think that's number one thing that I wanted to explain. But to cut the story short from her side is that she must be able to identify structures that exist in Garangua and actually have to link with those structures. And if those structures are non-existent, it is within their prerogative to then establish structures. Because I would imagine that social development would have their own structures in terms of identifying what kind of NPOs exist in that area. Then they would have to utilize the database that would have been identified to establish such structures. Of course, if they would need assistance, SEPO is there and I would be able to come and assist them in that regard. But I just wanted to come to a point, Thandeka, which was raised by, I think, Liesel and Meraldia as well, that says there's quite a great resistance from the partners which we're supposed to work with, the department or local government municipality. Yesterday, I was quite amazed when the CFO of this municipality, when we asked the question as to how would they be able to integrate the ECD into the budget and also the integrated developmental plan of the municipality. The CFO came in and responded in a sense that it is not within their prerogative to actually a budget for the municipality. We had to make sure that with the support that we come up with documents which are supporting documents, be the Change Act or National Integrated Policy Framework, or even the Constitution for that matter, in terms of trying to draw their attention to say, this is the government policy. This is the process that we are undergoing. It is a legal process, and remember now we're not just coming as individuals. We are coming as sector organizations, particularly civil society organizations who are doing advocacy, which have a reach in terms of audience in the local municipality, and also there is an NPO forum and an ECD forum that exists here, which is that, by the way, sits in this IDP representative forum. Then it tells you that you are going to be therefore given a mandate, because the National Integrated Policy Framework says so that it must be given a mandate. So ours was to give a mandate through submissions that we did in the municipality, and also the consultation session that we sat with to say this is what the ECD sector requires from the municipality. Therefore, the manner in which it's supposed to be approached, it must be that the municipality must prioritize these issues that we spoke about. Particularly when we talk about to them that they must be able to develop an ECD policy for the local municipality. It was to them like it was something that they've never heard of. But we had to make sure that to them that these are the legal frameworks, this is legislation speaks in this context, and you have no option now but to align yourself with that. And I'm pleased to say that we will be giving a presentation in about 30 minutes or so with Stepo, and actually participating, will be leading in those commissions. And the forum, both forums, the NPO and the ECD forums, they are here. We will make sure that in the education commission, we actually lead the process in terms of providing what is needed into the sector. That's how tense the process is, but we need to guide it in such a way that we're not seen as people who are fighting with them, but we are providing a substance and we're providing contributions, particularly in the sense that we will be contributing to the development of children of this area. I think I just wanted to put those things. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Mzi. And I think what you're talking about is a fundamental issue in that there are usually gaps in the knowledge of municipal officials of their mandate, of their constitutional mandate when it comes to early childhood development. And it sounds like to me, I mean, I think we're all at different levels in terms of how we're working with municipalities. I mean, Meraldia and Liesel, you're probably at a more advanced stage in terms of your relationship with municipalities. And I think with Mzi and some of the SteerCom members of Real Reform, you know, these are emerging relationships. These are relationships that are still being built. And as you can hear, you know, Mzi and others are, well, they have to, and at this point, you know, sort of play that role where they are educating municipal officials about you know, what their role in ECD is. It shouldn't be the case, but that's what is unfortunately happening on the ground. And so thank you for bringing that out, Mzi. And without wasting any time, because I'm aware of time and our conversation has been going on for a while, I don't see any questions from the chat. But maybe while people are thinking about, you know, any questions they would like to any questions that they would like to pose. You know, could I just have a sense from, you know, the three of you, you know, of some of the very critical challenges that you think people need to be aware of? And maybe I'll just limit it to 2 challenges, Liesel, Meraldia, as well as Mzi, for you just to give us a sense of what have those challenges, what have they been? That you think are quite critical for us here in the room to hear about when working with municipalities in this process. Liesel, I'll start with you. Oh, okay. Mzi, are you ready to go?
Yeah, no, I just thought that because I'm looking at the time and I might be called to come to that presentation. But I just wanted to just touch to, I think, one aspect which I think all of us who are not taking into account. You know, when you are approaching the officials, be it you are a forum or just a civil society organization, you must be able to be in a position of knowing your issues by the tip of your hands. Because imagine now, I'm thinking that if I'm told by my colleagues that this is what should happen, but I don't invest time in familiarizing myself with the documents that seek to assist and back me up in my arguments, I'll be seen as someone that do not take the official serious. And it happens most of the time that when you are speaking, you must be able to refer people to a certain section, to a certain document, such that you're not seeing as you are not found wanting whenever you're trying to submit or putting your points across. I think that's number one. I've seen it. Many people would. It's like they are in church. The pastor would just preach and not go to the Bible and actually refer to the scripture that has been read. So the point that I'm trying to make, a panelist and Thandeka, is to say, let's try to invest time on the documents that seek to assist the process that we are undergoing. I think that's number one. 2, We had adopted an approach with real reform to say the advocates that we're doing, we're not doing it in order to fight with government. The approach that we have adopted as real reform was to say we seek to establish workable relations in order to benefit primarily the most vulnerable children of this country. Because we are aware that without actually lobbying the sister departments or the organizations that are supposed to be working for the children, we need to find an approach which is more amicable but assertive in such a way that it works for our benefit. We have seen that now we have quite good relations with the standing committee in Parliament. It was not an easy journey, but the manner in which we were coherent and persistent in our approach, it did yield good results. And actually, even now, as we're speaking, we form part and parcel of the technical team. We must appreciate the manner in which we've approached it. So I just wanted to touch on those two, that perhaps we can learn a thing or two in manner in which the real reform has worked in order to approach and actually spearhead our objectives, because ours is to make sure that we develop and emancipate the most vulnerable children in South Africa. I think I just wanted to say those two things before I leave this session. Thank you very much, Thandeka and the panelists.
Thank you very much for that, for those key learnings, Mzi. And I very much appreciate what you're saying about, people have to understand what they're talking about when they approach municipalities. And I think, one of the reasons why I've really come to appreciate being part of a movement like Real Reform Campaign is, that ability to really bring down those complex issues, to us lay people who might not have usually understood them. And so I'd really like to encourage the participants who are also here in the room just to go check out the Real Reform website, and maybe Zoe, you could share the link, because there are very valuable links around, that can educate you around, what is an act, what is a policy, what do those things mean? And in addition to that, obviously, there's also links to the acts and the policies themselves. So thank you so much for bringing that out, Mzi. Meraldia, you've spoken about the turnaround time. You touched on that, and it came out as a very strong point, in the challenges that you've experienced working with municipalities. What other two challenges do you think are quite critical for us to be aware of as we embark on getting ECD into the IDP process?
Okay, thank you, Thandeka. I think two more challenges that we have experienced is the interpretation and understanding of legislation differs from one official to the other official. It also impacts on the different areas where different officials are working. So you get multiple different kind of signals in terms of what you have to do in terms of the officials' understanding of the legislation. And that can sometimes, many a time, retard the process of the time things have to be delivered. And also officials of the municipality changing their positions. So you get there today, you talk to that person, you're almost there, you get there the next day, somebody new, story begins all over again. And what I want to say is they need to keep the public more informed of what the intention is regarding early childhood development. There's too little workshops being run by the municipality to inform ourselves of what they are doing in their community. Then I just want to say to our NGOs, we need to no longer think that we are an NPO or an SSO, social service organization. we need to look at ourselves as a humanitarian organization with community development at the forefront of it all. So no longer shall we look at ourselves as being a training organization or such, but a training and community development organization. And I think I want to talk into Rankua there to say that even though you are an NPO with an ECD program, you have beneficiaries in terms of the teachers, principals, governing bodies whom you are training, and also parents. Those are your beneficiaries. So stand up straight and be the leader in taking them forward. Thank you very much, Thandeka.
Thank you, Meraldia. I really appreciate that mobilization at the end there. And not just, I think not just for NGOs, but really for all of us here in the room. We have that responsibility for our beneficiaries, who are primarily the young children of South Africa. Liesel, your two challenges.
Okay, so I get back to what the municipalities, we had 8 municipalities that we were working with, and we worked with them over a period of 3 to 4 years in some cases. And in all that time, with all the presentations and all the work that we've done, and even with those projects, steering committees, some of the, we had problems in the sense that we had very grassroots officials with no mandate, no decision-making powers. And at the time, they were also not really informed of what is going on national level. But in all cases, when every time that we had a presentation with the department, with the municipality standing committees or council, they would say to us, we hear all the work that you're doing. We understand what you are doing, but we do not know about the National Priority Program. We do not know about our roles and responsibilities. You tell us that, but we haven't heard it from our departmental colleagues. And there are so many things that we need to ask them because it's an unfunded mandate. We want to ask the National Treasury a lot of questions. We want to sort out the roles and responsibilities with the various departments. And the people that are here now in our, and also we've learned a lot, not to have too much grassroots people who can't take decisions or do not have a formal mandate to sit on these meetings, because that's also extremely frustrating if they say, I don't know, I will have to ask, I can't tell you, I don't have the mandate to tell you anything. We have done some, in 2018, I have done all the assessments of all IDPs in KZN, it's 53 of them. Not one single one of them made mention of the fact that there is a national ECD priority program. Not one of them mentioned that there is an ECD policy. So they did not know about those things. But the nice thing, or the good thing is that we approached COCTA. COCTA came in, COCTA said, okay, it is a national program. From now on, we are going to ensure that ECD is on the ward assessment or the ward document that they are using during IDP. So ECD will be there. You have to attend to it. It's also on the assessment form for COCTA, so that when they assess the IDPs, they can see if ECD is attended to, and they get feedback on that. So initially, we've done all of the feedback for COCTA. The next year and the year after, we were very pleased to see that COCTA in KZN has taken up that function, and they are now giving feedback to the joint service delivery forums and so on as to the state of ECD, or how ECD is accommodated within the IDPs. And also with Cocta, we had an excellent MEC, she's now gone. And also some of the senior managers that were there, they are also gone. But we had the privilege of also presenting at the Munimex meetings between the MEC and the municipality. So it gives it a little bit of some kind of a status that the MEC is standing there and saying this is what should be done. And so that helps a lot. So I can't overemphasize the fact that we need to be able to get national and provincial departments to create this awareness and interact with the municipalities. Then Mzi won't have all the problems that he currently have with CFOs saying that this is not their core function. They're not going to attend to this. The other thing is, you must remember that ECD has always now been seen as a compliance issue, not as a development function. So they are bound by all their legislation and everything, and that makes them look like this, you know, they can't look that way and they can't look this way. So it makes it very, very difficult for municipalities to sit in one meeting and then change over like this from attending only to compliance issues now to put on their developmental hat and enabling hat. And remember, they don't even know what they need to do. They need somebody like a Meraldia to tell them, this is what we want. This is what we want to see. They're not going to sit there and just know somehow what they need to do. So we need to guide them and to tell them this is actually what we want to do. And we need to accept that the people in that position, that land use management, land use manager, that person is an expert in whatever they are doing. We can think how things can work, but when I present my problem to her, she will have to say, okay, I can't go that way. This way we will have some problems. Let's go this way. And she's the one who can see the innovations. She's the one that can lead it, but you need to lead her to see the need to deal with informality. You need to remind her, like Mzi said, look, you have a SPLUMA, that act that tells you that you have to deal with informality. You have to include all the informal settlements within your schemes, and you have to make sure that there's incrementally, that you deal with these people incrementally in terms of tenure, in terms of land use and all of those things. You have to create that enabling, leave it there and then see what they are doing with it. Make an appointment to see again and find out what could they come up, see if you can live with that or not. In eThekwini, we have now seen that that in the schemes they've included an exemption for all ECD centers, and they can now open up an ECD center on any site as long as it's safe. They are currently investigating a simplified consent. They are looking at not forcing people to work through town planners. They're going to have a short procedure, waive maybe some of the costs like advertisement and so on, and concentrate on something like a neighbor's consent and so on. So, but it took a long, long, long time for us to get there. And that is what I want to say. You're dealing with people that needs to switch their minds. There needs to be a mind shift, and mind shifts don't happen from one meeting to another meeting. So you need to have patience. And I would just say, find out what other people are doing. Like Mzi said, make sure that you know what other City of Johannesburg is doing, what Cape Town is doing, what eThekwini is doing, and then you know, familiarize yourself with those things, and that will also help you.
Thank you so much, Liesel. I think the overarching thread with everything that all three of you have said, unfortunately, Mzi had to leave. You know, it sounds like, you know, in addition to having to educate municipal officials, it's quite important to be consistent in how we keep them accountable, and how we keep them focused on their mandate, right? And I mean, Liesel, you've also highlighted the fact that as much as we are shifting our focus, or, you know, adopting a local government lens, there's still so much that needs to be done at a national level to get these national departments, well, DBE and the local municipalities, you know, really, as well as COGTA and people like COGTA, you know, really having those much needed conversations around integration, and really committing to provide services for early childhood development. So if you were just zoning into the IDP process more specifically, right, which is what we as the Real Reform are currently really focused on at the moment, right? What would be your parting shots in terms of giving us advice? You know, I think both of you have heard what Mzi and Tepo are currently up to at the moment, you know, having those kind of engagements. But when it comes to the integrated development plan, what advice do you have for us? Liesel, you said you assessed 53 at some point. Meraldia, I know you have years and years of advocacy experience in this regard. So please give us two parting shots, two main key advices or recommendations for the Real Reform campaign regarding IDPs.
Okay, so me. I would say that for the Real Reform, wherever and whomever you can reach in the ECD sector, they must become knowledgeable about the IDP plans, wherever they are. And they must filter it down to their forums or the individual ECD centers if they do not belong to a forum. First of all, encourage them to become members of the forum, and to also understand what is in the IDP plan for ECD, because there's offshoots in the IDP plan which also runs parallel to ECD in the plan. So we must all, and I'm starting with myself first, get to know what is in the IDP plan, and as service provider organizations, take it out to our constituencies, because it is not always that our ECD centers get this kind of information from the municipalities directly. Thank you, Thandeka.
Thank you, Meraldia. Liesel?
Sorry, on a national level, we have an infrastructure and registration subcommittee. And that's been chaired by the Department of Social Development, and it will probably now be chaired by the Department of Education. The co-chair there is Brian Liggett, and he's from Impande, and I'm sure you are familiar with the work that he's been doing in terms of registration and Vangasali and all of those things. Brian is also, he also assists us from time to time on an ad hoc basis in all the towns that we've been working in. So I think important for Real Reform is to make sure that you find out who's doing what and what is going on national level, and where are they at the moment in terms of progress, specifically when it comes to enhancing ECD in municipalities. The other thing is that I would just like to mention is that we've done a typical ECD sector plan. We've developed that. In 2019, we started off with the talks with COGTA and SALGA on national level, and DSD and all those people. And then they wanted to start off with the ECD sector plan or the ECD strategy and plan. And that plan has now been submitted to national to see, you know, what to do with it. But if you remember now, there's also something that's called the district development model that the president announced. And so in time to come, all municipalities or district municipalities and metros will have a one plan. And the whole idea is that there'll be one vision, one plan, one budget for all the departments and the municipalities in terms of ECD. So I would say, please ask and back the whole idea of an ECD strategy and 5-year sector plan as it is set out in the IDP, in the ECD policy. Because I think there, people will come together on a specific platform, they will work together, and that will have immense spin-offs and will actually, because that sector plan must go into the IDP.
Perfect. Sorry, Liesel, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly. So you're saying the ECD sector plan, real reform should, and how do we understand more about it? How do we, how do we get behind it? I'm just missing that part. Sorry about that.
Okay. I think maybe, in the advocacy process, is to say, this thing is coming now a long way, can't they get, can't real reform and all the organizations it represents ensure that the lead department will make sure that municipalities are briefed on the need to come up with an ECD strategy and 5-year plan. It's all in one, in like a sector plan, because then they will thrash out all of those issues that pertains to ECD within a municipal setup.
Okay. All right. Thank you, colleagues. I've just seen a comment on the chat. Oh, okay. Okay. I think it's Zoe saying Nobain is very involved with the one plan and the district development. Well, the DDM. Okay, thank you for that. And there was also a question here that was not complete by Jenny from Paxton. Jenny, I don't know if you would like to complete your question, but we can't see all of it properly. Okay, so colleagues, I think we're on time. We managed to actually go through this discussion and get the gist of it. I'm really happy that I got an opportunity to talk to you, Liesel, Meraldia, as well as Mzi, because I think as a SteerCom member, I probably have more in-depth understanding of what it really requires working with municipalities. And in terms of how you've explained it, it sounds like it requires a lot of engagement, consistent engagement, an approach that is not counterproductive, an approach that really says, we would like to work with you for the purposes and for the benefit of young children. So I think we have quite a lot that we would want, that we are going to jot down. I've certainly identified a number of working practice, when you approach municipalities. And I really appreciate your input into this conversation. I've only just managed to, okay, so here's Jenny. Jenny has raised her hand, and I think, Jenny, you probably would like to complete your question. Can you say it? Do I need to unmute you? I just don't want you to feel cheated. So I'm not opening up for questions, colleagues. Jenny had already posed a question in the chat because we do need to close now. So I'm not sure. Okay, I think Jenny's not asking her question anymore. I don't. Okay, there's Jenny. Yes, we can hear you.
I just want to share briefly with those two ladies and the gentleman. I can help you on national and provincial as far as ECD in the educational sector is concerned, because I've worked for 25 years for this organization. And if you just press the right buttons, you will get the right information. Okay. Because at the moment, for example, I work with national education. I work with DSD. I work with SALGA because I work with special schools in the country. And we need to help one another. We need social cohesion. So what I know, I can help you with. And what you know, you can help me with. Because I also serve on the National Children's Rights Coalition. So I could take your objections to them as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Jenny. And I think for real reform purposes, we will also reach out to you. So thank you so much for offering, you know, your occupation as well as your capability to really move us, you know, in a certain direction. Colleagues, I have to close the meeting. Thank you so much to the participants who joined the meeting today. And Liesel, Meraldia, I'd really like to, on behalf of the Real Reform ECD campaign, just thank you so much for your time. Thank you for putting in the effort to respond to our questions. I think we are going to leave here better equipped, you know, as we mobilize our forums and parents and communities, you know, in getting behind the IDP process. Thank you, colleagues. Let me close. Let me stop there before I start with another conversation. So thank you very much. The meeting is officially adjourned, and we will keep you updated in terms of any events that come up for Real Reform. And please do check out our website. We've got loads of things that are very helpful for everyone. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Thandeka. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.